Roger that. Visual on target. Standing by. Watch out. Visual on target. Watch out! Watch out! Visual on target. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Roger that. Yes, sir. Watch out. Watch out. Standing by. Visual on target. Standing by. Roger that. Roger that. Visual on target. Roger that. Visual on target. Standing by. Visual on target. Roger that. Standing by. Yes, sir. Watch out. Watch out. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Watch out. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Standing by. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Standing by. Watch out. Watch out. Standing by. Watch out. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Roger that. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Standing by. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Roger that. Standing by. Visual on target. Watch out. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watch out. Standing by. Visual on target. Visual on target. Roger that. Standing by. Standing by. Watch out. Visual on target. Roger that. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Roger that. Watch out. Watch out. Watch out. Standing by. Roger that. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Watch out. Standing by. Watch out. Visual on target. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Watch out. Watch out. Watch out. Visual on target. Watch out. Yes, sir. Watch out. Standing by. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Visual on target. Roger that. Roger that. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Roger that. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Roger that. Standing by. Yes, sir. Standing by. Visual on target. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Yes, sir. Roger that. Roger that. Watch out. Roger that. Roger that. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Roger that. Watch out. Roger that. Roger that. Watch out! Standing by. Roger that. Roger that. Standing by. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Visual on target. Standing by. Yes, sir. Standing by. Standing by. Watch out! Visual on target. Watch out! Visual on target. Yes, sir. Standing by. Standing by. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Roger that. Standing by. Roger that. Watch out. Standing by. Visual on target. Standing by. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Standing by. Standing by. Roger that. Visual on target. Watch out. Standing by. Roger that. Watch out. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Standing by. Standing by. Visual on target. Watch out. Yes, sir. Roger that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Standing by. Standing by. Standing by. Roger that. Watch out. Yes, sir. Roger that. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Roger that. Yes, sir. Watch out. Yes, sir. Watch out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watch out. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Roger that. Standing by. Watch out. Roger that. Visual on target. Roger that. Watch out. Roger that. Roger that. Roger that. Standing by. Visual on target. Watch out. Visual on target. Roger that. Roger that. Visual on target. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watch out. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Roger that. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Roger that. Standing by. Standing by. Roger that. Watch out. Standing by. Watch out. Standing by. Visual on target. Visual on target. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Yes, sir. Watch out. Visual on target. Watch out. Watch out. Roger that. Yes, sir. Standing by. Yes, sir. Roger that. Yes, sir. Standing by. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Watch out. Standing by. Standing by. Standing by. Visual on target. Visual on target. Watch out. Standing by. Roger that. Yes, sir. Watch out. Sir. Standing by. Watch out. Standing by. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watch out. Roger that. Visual on target. Visual on target. Watch out. Yes, sir. Standing by. Visual on target. Watch out. Standing by. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Visual on target. Standing by. Roger that. Standing by. Watch out. Standing by. Yes, sir. Watch out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Standing by. Watch out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Roger that. Watch out. Yes, sir. Watch out. Watch out. Standing by. Watch out. Roger that. Roger that. Standing by. Roger that. Watch out. Standing by. Standing by. Watch out. Standing by. Watch out. Watch out. Yes, sir. Watch out. Roger that. Standing by. Visual on target. Standing by. Watch out. Watch out. Roger that. Visual on target. Visual on target. Visual on target. Roger that. target. Visual on target. Yes, sir. Roger that.